and we're going to start off with a nice little quiz. A couple announcements too as you're going out there to log into that Menti. We just want to stay clear of the cameras if we can because we are going to be recording. So I'm going to hop over here. And then the agenda for this evening is a lot of us submitted questions in advance for our panelists, and so we're going to go through those. We've organized them into different categories, and at the end we have about 10 to 15 minutes for questions from all of us. So if you have questions, think about them, and then we'll talk to our panelists. So go ahead and hop into that Menti, and just a couple questions to kick us off. So you can pull out your phones and scan that QR code or go to menti.com and then put in the code 8570-3180. We'll give it like maybe another 15 seconds and then we'll kick things off. All right, Christina, here we go. I think it's 5 questions. The way this works is you want to answer correctly. Well, actually, I think it's actually more about you. It's not actually the right answer, so check that. Quick poll. All right, go ahead. Yep. What is your AI proficiency level? I'm an AI expert. I'm still learning about AI, or I know nothing.
Can you ever be an expert?
No, not working. Oh, is it working now? Okay. All right. Still learning about AI, the most popular category. All right. Nobody knows nothing. All right, next one. How often do you use AI? Multiple times per day? A few times. It's not built into my work processes, or I'm only getting started. This is okay. Multiple times per day. All right, a lot of AI users here. Okay, if we're only getting started. All right. All right, next one. What's your company's approach to AI? We're all in. We've adopted it, but not in a scalable way. Or the use of AI is restricted or prohibited. Okay, very interesting. Across the board here. Panelists, we have a wide range here, so make sure we can speak to everyone.
Very interesting.
All right, Christina, next one. What are your most common AI use cases? Job descriptions, employee onboarding, answering HR questions, or supporting performance management processes? Or none of the above? Wow. All right. Wide representation there. I think one more.
Bias of leave some customers in there.
What has been your most helpful prompt on GPT, or your worst? Open free text here.
I think I need this. Yeah.
Hello world, employee communication. All right, maybe we'll get some more at the end, so. All right.
I think it's delayed.
Is it delayed? Okay. Manager inefficiency. Okay, yeah, here we go. All right. Cool. All right, thanks everybody for doing that. We just want to get a sense of what our familiarity or use of AI is. So I'm going to introduce our panel today. We're going to talk about HR in the age of AI, our challenges and our opportunities. So we have with us Sandhiya Vignesh. Sandhiya is a pioneering HR technology leader an innovator currently serving as the Senior HR Business Partner at Apex On. Specializing in AI-driven HR solutions and digital transformation, Sandhiya's career spans top-tier organizations where she has deployed and led numerous groundbreaking HR tech projects in TCS, Cognizant, and Walmart Global Tech. Her unique blend of technical acumen and HR expertise demonstrated across numerous successful HR tech projects positions her at the forefront of the AI revolution in human resources. Welcome, Sandhiya. And then we have David Hanrahan. David's career has spanned 20 plus years building strong HR teams and fostering high-performing cultures across global organizations, including Eventbrite, Niantic, Zendesk, Twitter, Electronic Arts, and Universal Pictures. His areas of expertise include performance management, total rewards, hybrid work design, leadership development, progressive people practices, and driving high engagement. Welcome, David.
Thank you.
And our moderator tonight will be Jenny Podewils, co-CEO and co-founder of Leapsome. Jenny, Leapsome is a people enablement platform backed by Insight Partners. We help more than 1,600 companies build high-performing teams by driving employee engagement, productivity, and engagement. And Jenny was awarded Female Founder of the Year 2023 in the German Startup Awards. So welcome to our panelists. So we'll do questions that have been submitted into different categories. Jenny will lead us, and then at the end, we have time for some questions from our audience. So off to you, Jenny. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Michael. And thank you to all of you for coming. There's a lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces. I'm really glad you're all here. I'm also glad the folks from the Forbes New Work Summit came over. We had a really long day of engaging conversations there already, and really, really happy to have you all here. And we have these amazing speakers, operators, but also AI experts. So I'm really, really excited to be discussing this topic with you both today. And we would like to actually start off with a question that we don't, in my opinion, actually discuss often enough yet. And the first question I would like to kick us off with is, what role do you as a people leader actually have in driving your company's AI strategy? And I think we want to start with David, so
Okay. Well,
kick us off.
I have no idea what my role is. No, I think I sit on an executive team, and we talk about AI on our consumer side. So I'm David. I'm a chief people officer at a legal tech company, and so we are a consumer business that deals with clients of family law and the lawyers. And we, question ourselves every day: how can we actually apply AI to an industry that really hasn't been disrupted in many, many years? And that scares everyone in the legal industry because it appears that 40% of the profession is going to be disrupted by AI in the coming years. It's one of the highest in terms of functions that's going to be disrupted. So we spend a lot of time thinking about this, how we can adopt it, and then I kind of approach it just from a general sort of C-level enterprise mindset, and it's fluid in terms of this is something that we could apply for the consumer. This is something that we could also apply internally, and we could start it internally and see if it works externally, and vice versa. And so my role there, I think about corporate productivity all the time, but I also think about it just from a sort of general C-level perspective.
Thank you. Thanks, David. I think that gives a lot of segue for HR leaders, right? Over the last couple of years and the years to come in, we have about a certain percentage of roles. Everybody says it's going to be replaced by AI. But the first important thing that we are handling currently in the organization is the workplace anxiety. And I come from an organization where it's completely tech. So it's an IT services and consulting. And which means day in and day out, they're all working on technology. And every minute the technology changes, and they are extremely perturbed by the fact that, oh, am I relevant in the organization or am I redundant? And to go away with, we have the HR department where we have multiple systems, processes in place. So we have a very systematic approach of HR strategy for AI, especially looking at where do we start? How do we start? Is there a problem? Prioritizing. Do we need to buy systems? Do we need to build systems? Or do we need just to work with Excels and humans and nothing at all? Right? So these are some things that we started questioning ourselves early, and we believe that AI is going to be there consistently with us, and we will go with this on the strategy, and we will ensure that we have ethical AI practice and tools given to our employees in the organization.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and your particular role yourself in your organization. I think for the folks at the Forbes Summit, there was also a lot of discussion that one of the key levers to actually get AI programs sort of like really started, to get change started, to get to more scalability. We also have a huge learning effort ahead of us and enablement effort in these organizations. So maybe that's something we can also touch upon, how you actually practically drive that in your organizations. And before we dive into some of these questions, to set the scene also a bit further, like what's your AI roadmap or strategy that you drive within your own organizations and your HR department in particular?
You want to start?
Yeah, I think to just piggyback on the conversation that David had, right? So a couple of things is definitely upskilling and reskilling. That strategy is going to be consistent across the organizations, across mid, small enterprises, or whichever size of the organization that we are in. And this upskilling or reskilling is not just for the HR. We look at this AI strategy for our entire organization, starting from the CXOs. We enable them with tools. We ensure that the CXOs also try some of these AI tools and say, hey, are you fascinated? Are you really wanting to use it? And then let's look at enabling it for our employees. Is it biased, non-biased? So that's where we start. I think you might want to add on more, David, to this.
Yeah. Maybe you've felt this, but I've been getting a lot of demos for AI, particularly AI HR products. And usually the website says, we can solve this problem for you. And like, wow, that's okay. That's, we can solve sourcing. Like we provide, a 70% increase in qualified leads by using AI sourcing, or take your pick of like, just headline of like, that seems really attractive. I'd love to have that. And I find myself sometimes taking a step back of like, do I need that? What problem do I need to solve for right now in my company? So I use sourcing as an example. I don't think that we can kind of grow a sourcing army, but we need to increase like our qualified leads for our sales team. We need to find a way. We need to find like, is there a way for us to increase qualified leads by not creating like a human sourcing army, but maybe that's where AI sourcing can kind of come in. And starting with what your requirements are of like what problem we're trying to solve for is really important, because I think a lot of people are getting this AI FOMO where like, oh, that sounds like a really great tool. We should have that, but did we even really need that? And is it real? I think that's kind of a problem in AI tool adoption right now, is there's a lot of vaporware out there right now. And you'll see the claim, and then when you actually start testing it, it actually doesn't do what it claims to do. But also, chiefly, maybe it isn't even solving a problem that is really most important for you. So the AI roadmap is really, your company's roadmap, our productivity roadmap, our cultural roadmap. Like, what problems are we trying to solve for? And then maybe an AI application will fit in there, or maybe not.
Correct. I think just to add on the last statement, right? We should not start with the technology. We should start with the problem in the organization. So the moment we demarcate between the technology and problem, the roadmap becomes extremely clearer and visible.
Yeah. And I think that's really, really interesting what you're both pointing out, because I think what we're seeing is a lot of folks being in an experimentation phase, right? Playing around with different tools, whether it's through ChatGPT or whether it's other generative AI tools, or maybe at the app layer, first AI functionalities. And it's kind of like exploring how it works, how it does, when it adds value. But both of you are very much already thinking in the almost like, well, how do I get to scalability, right? Like, what are my priorities? What are the challenges? Like, how do I, as the people function, support the overall business goals? And then AI becomes one measure or one tool in a larger tool stack to actually help reach those business results, those people team results. So I think it's really, really interesting, because that really talks about how do we get to the scalability of AI, where does it really add value. And if you think about, because I know both of you, it's top of mind, you've done a lot of things, you're testing a lot of things. So what are the challenges that you started to sort of face when you think about deploying AI maybe beyond an experimentation phase and get sort of like more to scalability?
Sure. Do you want to go or should I?
Go ahead.
I think the first portion, so a couple of months back, we did have this Databricks AI Summit. The first slide started with our data estate is fragmented. And I still find that is extremely relevant in any organization. Unless you have the right data, you have right, clean, sorted data, you can never really move in any technology implementation that you would want to, be it AI, non-AI, or LLM. So data is fragmented. And that is where the first challenge is, having the right data in systems or in Excels for us makes a lot of difference. At the end, I still see enterprise data sitting on an Excel or a PowerPoint, and if that is clean and sorted, I'm sure we will be able to scale any technology further. Yeah.
No, that's a huge point. I just want to double click on it, which is your data internally. And you can imagine the external world and how ChatGPT is so powerful because it taps into all this publicly available information, and they figure out a way to sort it and sort of provide it and synthesize it in a way that's really compelling. AI in an internal use case is the data organized. Like I'll give you an example of our consumer side. We're a legal tech company. We try to provide an AI case update feature to our clients because clients of family law are constantly calling their lawyers saying, "What's going on with my case? I want to know when this is going to be over." And lawyers get overwhelmed by these requests, and so we said, hey, maybe we can create an AI case update. So it'll just send little updates of like, your motion's been filed, opposing party's is deliberating on it. Next step is a court, date, hearing or whatever on this date. And we launched this. We spent a lot of time iterating on it, finding the information, and then the lawyers can override the update. They could say, nope, don't send that out. That's not right. Nope. And so, our first experiment on this on the external basis was the data is incorrect or it's all over the place. Now you can imagine the internal use case of HR data. An HR agent. I just want to provide, almost like an HR business partner who can be like an AI HR business partner. And what information are they going to provide? It can only tap into, your policies, some of which are actually outdated, one of which is actually incorrect, one of which doesn't apply in Israel or what have you. And so that idea of the data infrastructure, I'm just double clicking on that. I think that back to my point about structuring the RFPs, like the biggest challenge to deploy AI in HR is the problem you're trying to solve for. And I was on a call earlier today, and one of the speakers said, start with lower stakes items, lower stakes but high adoption use cases. So low stakes, like this is not going to involve personal identifying information. It's not going to involve like judgment that could actually go haywire. Like we're giving the wrong advice as this HR business partner to this, to this employee. Starting with lower stakes but high adoption use cases in terms of deploying AI in HR is probably a best bet. So start smaller with a problem that we think that this can actually, apply, and then also demo it, pilot it. Actually test out the claims that the vendor is making before you go wide. See if you can actually take it on sort of like a 10% experiment, or we're only going to adopt this in the engineering team to start. Involve the stakeholders. So in HR, our stakeholders are the employees. Are we going to adopt something that we think is really cool but no one else is going to use it? Are we going to adopt something that's actually going to solve a problem or not? You have to involve the stakeholders.
I think the last portion of the most important challenge is the leadership buy-in. While we want to test, we want to pilot, we want to do everything, I think that's where we all get stuck, right? I'm a mid-sized firm or a small-sized firm. I don't think so my use case will get priority. I don't think so HR tech is our priority. We can run with an Excels now. It might take some time back. I think leadership buy-in for the HR investments is the topmost challenge, and I'm sure we can all sort our data. I'm sure we will all have our clean data, but this presenting to our leadership, like the way David is saying, small demos, small pilots, small successes goes a long way.
Yeah. Thank you both. I think you both touched on so many interesting points, so we could go into a bazillion different directions. Maybe just to double click on one thing. So what I hear from you is like it's very urgent to some extent for us to to get order into our processes, into our data sets, and to technology set to really, or stack to really have that basis to then actually become smarter, augment processes, maybe start simple, then sort of show or demonstrate the success thereof, then you have a good case, a good potential ROI you can take to your leadership team. But those are kind of like the steps where ideally we need to start now in order to set ourselves up for success. I think you told me something that you did with like an Excel sheet mapping. Do you mind talking about it? Because I think it's like a really interesting, tangible way how you went about that.
Sure. So I do get a lot of questions because I've deployed so many AI products in a couple of the organizations that I've worked in. I'm not a techie. I have absolutely no clue how a Java coding works. What is Ash include is the last thing that I remember when I studied C some time back. So, but I do interact with techie all day in and day out. I always figure out I enter a math class and I need to talk to my math teacher in a way that she understands that I also get what is it. So that's how I started this. So one most tangible way for every HR person, or I think in every role that it is to figure out your efforts. Where does your efforts go? That's exactly where I was talking about an effort estimation. So we did it multiple times. So what I do is I go list down all my tasks and I see if I'm doing it manually or is it automated. Does it really require an AI assistance, or does it, so AI, Gen AI have just come in, right? Do I really need something on Gen AI? Sorry, AI has been there almost. So do I really need a Gen AI? So this manual automation, how many times do I do it? What is the frequency in which I do it? Do I do it with the dependency of a stakeholder, or do I do it solely by myself? And can I look at grooming myself further so that my task reduces? My self-effort estimation leads to automation of tasks that I do, which leads to the efficiency of myself and which leads more and more productivity, not just gain for individual but also to the organization. I think starting small, if people ask me typically, oh, I don't have access to ChatGPT, I don't have access to anything, the one that we all have access to is Excel sheets or a paper and pen to quickly starting, jot downing, and then figuring out where the priority is.
It's really interesting. So you map out the effort, you map out the impact, and when you start looking into technology, and I mean, I think you've mentioned there's a lot of vaporware out there, a lot of, it's hard to know what's like a marketing claim versus what actually works. So how do you go about then? Like, is looking at the AI roadmap of every vendor now part of your RFPs, your buying decisions or tooling? I think you also said there's sometimes like one new tool choice leading to the next one. So like, how do you then build the right technology stack to actually help your goals to tackle the right effort and impact sort of like activities?
One trick that's super helpful is these companies will have the logos on the bottom, and we'll say, you know, we're at this company, and I'm like, I know someone at that company. And I'll reach out and like, hey, it seems like you're using this for, you know, onboarding, you know, whatever. What do you think of it? And that's really telling. And like, you know, so your network is very helpful in terms of sorting through the solutions. There will be names, you know, like we're at the top of the Gartner hype cycle on AI right now. So we're going to sort through a lot that are actually not real, or they're not even really AI, or they are technology, but they're not AI. And then there will be names that start to sort of, you know, kind of stand out. And for me, I lean on my network as well as getting demos and see if I can convince them to give me a pilot. So.
And a lot of times I rely on David's response to those demos, and then I say, oh, okay, fine, they have tried it, let me try it. So I think networking and speaking to people and getting their inputs really helps us in this journey.
We're both part of this People GPT community. So it's basically a Slack forum where we'll ask each other, like, have you used this tool? And then you'll get like 5 responses and say, yeah, it's bullshit, you know, or you know, it actually really works and it's amazing and like I love it, and that's huge for me in terms of I lean in or lean away from.
Absolutely.
I think one interesting, because we also, like we have a lot of AI capabilities in Leapsum, but we also actually really try to reimagine some of our ops, like operational processes or go-to-market processes with AI capabilities. And I think sometimes we try something and test something and people are like, oh, this is really not great. And I think the one thing I always try to remind folks in our own company about is like, but this might change in 2 months. Just because it doesn't work now, we need to actually keep coming back, like in content generation, like what actually, because the evolution curve is so fast. I think that's actually, it's kind of like not so easy because you need to reevaluate almost like on a continuous basis, which I think is an interesting challenge.
Yeah, I think everything is changing really rapidly. OpenAI's release this week has reasoning in it.
Yeah.
And you know, like depending upon who you ask, they will say that artificial general intelligence is a year away or a year and a half away. And like Josh Berson's article from just a few days ago, if you haven't read that, it's really interesting about AI agents, which is there are these step changes happening. And I think it's hard to sort of wrap your head around it when I'm still just experimenting. I'm just sort of asking, you know, ChatGPT a question. But I think the more that we can kind of push ourselves to actually figure out if there's something here that I can solve an important problem, there will be companies that sort of lead on this and sort of gain a lot of gains. And back to your first question, what's your role? I find just sort of like pushing on us to figure out if there's a problem here for us, and then AI could help solve for it is important.
Yeah, and the smallest step, right? For example, some of the organizations might not have the leeway to have a talent acquisition separately or a HR department separately. So we might be doing everything together. And some prompts, right? Typically, you want to review a resume and then speak to the person before getting into a call with the candidate. This can do in 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. but you'll be trying to read the resume, go through this. So earlier effort of yours is about 25 minutes, and then now you're doing it in less than 5 minutes. So those are some of the concrete productivity for you to see. Number one, how have we been able to use the technology? Number two, like David is pointing out, the technology is rapid, it's changing so much, and we would be able to go ahead, cope up with it, and then drive through the journey of this strategy to keep up with the candidate, keep up with what your organization priority is.
Thank you so much. I think those are all great insights. And one point we briefly touched upon, you mentioned like leadership buy-in is so essential. So maybe even thinking more widely, like who are your allies, like who's slowing you down, how do you manage the whole people, stakeholder situation to get things moving?
I think I'm going to piggyback on a couple of points that David started, right? So he said about have small wins, demo the products, come back to the leadership. So when this entire Gen AI journey started, I went back to my leadership team with about 25 different use cases early last year. And then they said, oh, you know what, of the 25, can you give me top 3 use cases that we need to do? And the top 3 use cases drill down to the impact on cost, complexity, scalability, how quick can we implement, and does it actually make a revenue out of implementing it? So, which means our allies are more towards thinking at, is it a revenue generating use case, or it's going to be a cost incurring use case for us? So that's how the conversation started, and allies in different areas will be different stakeholders for us. HR, looking at multiple stakeholders, but CFOs in the organization play a very, very crucial role. And our CXOs, right, not just CEOs, your entire organization, COOs, etc., understanding the need to have AI in system now becomes extremely easier for the leadership buy-in, and those are my allies specifically here.
Yeah, that's really well said. I think of, if I can lock arms with the executive around, this is actually going to solve something that we're talking about at the executive level. So an example is like, how can we increase engineering velocity? And hey, there's this technology out there called Devon, which actually can, really accelerate engineers' abilities to provide code. And that's interesting. And there's actually another one out here that just came out. Productivity. Productivity is a challenge. It's on my mind. It's on CEO's mind. It's on the CTO's mind. But if what I'm going to come to ask for money on is, I need to find a way to make my HR team happier, and I want to put an HR agent in place to actually not have to answer questions from employees. It's like that. What does that solve for me as the CFO? What is that doing other than making your HR team happier? So kind of framing that as like, we're going to create value. Like, we're going to create value because engineering velocity is really important for us. And that corporate productivity app, Devon, it's probably not in the people stack. It's just corporate productivity. It'll probably sit in the CTO stack or the IT stack. And so, but I care about those, and I hopefully build trust with the executive team that like those are the problems I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I think just on the same lines, right? When we build trust, the one trust that we were trying to build it is our customers, because we are IT services consulting organization. Our customers started asking, are you folks using AI and Gen AI in your people process? Why don't you guys give me a demo of what you're doing? So that time, the HR business partner is actually becoming a consultant to the customer themselves and partnering, front-ending, saying, hey, you know what, we have been trying to do a lot of things, while a lot of things are on experimentation, and to go into production, do you think this will be a viable option to see there is a need? I think that's where the value of trust enlarges to see maybe we might commit to what some of the use cases are.
Awesome. And when we prepped the session, we really wanted to make it very tangible, give folks in the audience very concrete examples. So I would love to hear about your AI success story that really helps give people like an understanding of what exactly you've done, what the outcomes have been you've been able to achieve. So
one of our AI success stories, which I'm not going to take credit for, but we last summer, because we knew we had this like self-awareness that our industry is just going to be so disrupted by this, and we didn't know where to start. And there was a lot of sort of discussion and hype, but like, hey, maybe we should just ask our employees. And we did an AI hackathon, and we sort of like we framed the problem as to sort of like something that could solve an important problem for our clients or our co-counsels, and go. And from that came the AI case updates feature, and a whole slew of others. But also more importantly, it kind of created a culture of interest and engagement, and like people can actually chime in with ideas and share technologies and ask, why are we not doing this thing that is an AI generated process. And that sort of, as a success, was just like catalyzed, I think, our culture around an AI first mindset. Just a simple thing, it was like a hackathon.
I think that's so funny because in our organization, when I first went ahead and said, hey, we have a lot of Gen AI use cases that needs to be looked at, we prioritized one to see if we can start the journey. And then this hackathon was introduced even here. There were 200 participants and there was only one HR. So then I went ahead and shared my use case with everyone. You know what, this use case is about people, it's about you. Why don't you come invest in this idea? Let's build it together. So we started building something called Career Navigator. It's basically like any system that you currently looking at from external demos, that I key in my skill, based on org demand, it gives me a pathing. This was just a demo that we did. But the backside story to some of the successful implementations that we have currently been working on is looking at creating an algorithm for our employees to see where they stand in the organization. Can we give them personalized learning recommendations? Can we let the leadership know what kind of employees are we currently investing in and what kind of demands are we currently getting? So it makes way for our go-to-market strategy on the kind of customers that we need to tap in. It makes way for our existing employees to have a great career pathing and a promotion. And it also makes a way for HR to simplify tasks on talent management. So this is one such use case that we recently are working on, and we are in the phase of testing it. So yeah.
Really, really exciting. And I think we have the benefit of having you both here, and you have all these deep experience. If we condense that a bit into almost like advice for the audience. So let's imagine, I think we had a lot of folks here in the audience today that say like they're just getting started. They're in the experimentation phase. So what are like the tangible next steps based on your experience that you would sort of like give people to really start their journey of having impact or leveraging what they can do in the organization by leveraging AI?
So I mean, a couple of things. What happens, what kind of passes us by if you're in a sort of people function and you're overseeing some sort of products like a vendor, like a HRIS or an ATS or a performance platform, is you have an RFP, you have a contract renewal. And like, is this a moment for us to actually take a step back? Is there something else out there? Like, should we re-sign for this company for 2 years? Or should we explore, should we actually open up an RFP? And that takes a little bit of work. It takes like, okay, we're gonna actually go to market for this thing. So that's been important for me. But more simple things is find a community, community where people are actually sharing this and kind of going back and forth. It's kind of inspiring. We're part of People GPT. That's one. It's simple to join, but there's plenty of others. If you've used AI in a sort of simple use case like just creating a job description, what's the next thing? What's the next thing for you to actually try and for me, doing the AI meeting summary app like Sana's free AI tool. Meeting summary tool was kind of was really interesting for me in terms of what that could actually do, and sort of finding a new use case from that survey. If I haven't done this yet, could I do that? Is there some sort of free solution out there? And currently I'm reading Ethan Mollick's Co-Intelligence, which is really good, and so finding ways to sort of continue to sort of keep yourself up to date as to the technology, not only in an HR sense, but like the OpenAI release this week. What does that mean? Like, what does it actually mean for a broader sort of societal and sort of tech landscape? Are things that I think are important, that I find a lot of value in.
Thank you. So I'm going to hop on to David's statement of finding a community, right? And of course, People GPT has been super helpful for us to keep learning. So number one is investing in ourselves, investing in looking at from HR, how do I grow myself in AI? We don't have to be a tech expert, but you need to be an expert in which that you can use that AI to your use. And second, do not start with the technology. Please start with the problem. So go back, go to your whiteboard, speak to your team, understand where do we start. Third, the more important thing of the success of not just AI or any platform is, number one, definitely looking at technology. Have your tech partners with you. Second is having a change management, right? So we have deployed a lot of things across, and always we say, hey, this is her baby, this is their baby. So product process is not anyone's baby. Product process has to be a complete change management by itself, which will actually ensure that you have continuous learning and success. So these are some things that I've been trying to see, starting small with an Excel to growing further to understand if your organization already has AI tools. If you're using Microsoft 365, try Copilot. Engineering folks can have GitHub Copilot. So what are some things that you can enable tools with your existing tech availability is something for us to ponder on and for us to look at the entire strategy of not just upskilling ourselves, but the organization.
If you're a Leapsome customer, look at our AI features. They're very helpful. Do you have one favorite hack? Because I think that's all like great advice, but everybody's busy agenda, so like it might sound almost like overwhelming. So like my favorite hack, for example, just in terms of making sure I test of what works and what doesn't work is whenever I open like Google and I want to Google something, I stop myself and I try, is it actually more effective for me to look this up on ChatGPT just to like test what works, what doesn't work? Do you have a favorite hack, like just something like super snappy, easy for everyone to do?
Yeah, so I think I don't go to Google anymore. I go to Perplexity for sourcing. So, and then I use Claude for more. I was just speaking to David. It gives me complete design requirements, prototypes, codes, everything. I've been trying to develop an app for the last 2 weeks, no code application, absolutely zero techie. So I still know only Ash include, but Claude is helping me step by step. So these are two things, anything, anywhere, they're just my assistants. I just go there. These two, my favorite hack.
I'm just gonna say I'm gonna try that. So my hack is not nearly as good as that, so I'm gonna try that one.
Do you have one?
I still find myself using ChatGPT. We summarize our board meeting, which someone asked me, is that legal? Can you do that? I'm like, I don't know. And then I find like I take a lot of notes in our executive team meeting, and like just asking, like putting it in and sort of scrubbing the name of the company, and then asking like what's been the biggest theme. I found like our leadership were misaligned with, so our executive team of 6 people, and then we have a leadership team of about 16 people. And I went and I asked each of them, you know, what's the most important challenge for us to solve as a company in the next 12 months, the leadership team. And then I asked the executive team, and there was misalignment. And I used ChatGPT just to summarize it. And I showed the misalignment, which like, I just came from an offsite in New Jersey where we're talking about our strategy for next year. And a lot of like our energy was around, we got to solve for this misalignment. And I think if I had just tried to do that just by synthesizing it myself, like, hey, I had these conversations and let me tell you what I heard, but just the fact that I was just kind of throw that in to ChatGPT really quick, like actually unlocked a lot for this offsite we were just on.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I would love to open it up to questions from the audience. We already have the first one. I think Michael is moving around with the mic, but you might have to come a tiny bit closer because we have some cord limitations here.
Yes, I can walk to you, but yeah, just your name and your question.
Hi, thank you so much. First off, everything is super helpful. I have many notes. My question is actually around security, but it's for everyone. I think in a world of one too many security breaches, how are you thinking about all of the data that we're exposing to a lot of tools that are very, very new, and even sensitive data as easy as like resumes, you know, people's addresses, phone numbers, everything like that, to, you know, legal stuff.
Yeah. So I'll just take on this, and then I'm sure David will definitely have a lot to add. So when we started these kind of workshop or these kind of consulting to smaller organizations, and of course to HR, the first thing that came off extremely easy was uploading the resume on ChatGPT, and then it's saying that does the JD and the resume that was uploaded, does it match? And that's where people started questioning data security, IT, and a lot of things. And we don't have very clear guidelines unless the organization is restricted use or an enterprise use. So we gave one suggestion is, why don't you upload a blind resume? Take off all information about anything that is there, upload it, get the response. While it might not solve the question of we have an issue of data privacy security, but it might solve ethical use of how do you use ChatGPT or how do you use any systems, that is to take 2 steps back and think, does that recommendation engine solving my problem or creating more problem by rejecting suitable candidates or getting more data about them, which I do not want to get, right? I think those are some things that we have tried really worked, and I'm sure legal data privacy, I will leave it to you again.
Yeah, we have on the consumer side, so on our product that we offer, we have an ethics advisory board, which are these amazing lawyers, six lawyers across the country. And so we have a lot of regulatory oversight in our product and our offering. So we go through a lot of steps to make sure that anything that we're doing is compliant and safe for our consumers. On the internal side, interestingly, when you think about personal identifying information, so PII and employees' social security numbers, and like, hey, who's having access to this, and what are you actually putting in a chat GPT who might actually have access to internal conversations? On the HRIS side specifically, there's actually very few HRIS platforms out there right now that are going all in on AI. And so even Rippling, so Parker Conrad was on a panel not too long ago where he said, I'm not really interested in AI. I was like, wow, okay. That's the HRIS platform. That's where everything is going in and out. Now, Workday is different. Workday just signed a big deal with Salesforce. And so I think they're very much all in. But in general right now, some of the most sensitive employee information right now, the HRIS platforms are not really trying to expose that information or find ways for that information to actually kind of be find itself in the wrong hands. But I do think it's important to know on a sort of on performance, on sensitive performance conversations, to know the partner that you're working with, whether it's AI powered or not. What are the safeguards in place? So I think the same cautions you would take on sensitive conversations internally and who has access to it, you're going to have the same sort of IT security conversations, whether they're AI powered or not.
And I think it was interesting when we had the survey in the room in the beginning, there was a relatively big group of people who said AI is prohibited in their company. And as a CEO, I think that's actually surprising, because I think what's going to happen is folks might just use the free version of ChatGPT, which is the worst solution, because if you have enterprise ChatGPT, or if you use AI at the app layer within LeapSam, that's much more secure than having your employees just use whatever's out there for free. So I think this is also interesting, sort of as a company from policy perspective, what can you really prohibit that away, or say people not to use it?
Erin Hilgard, I do leadership consulting. I think my question relates to what you're saying. One of my big takeaways from this conversation is that being kind of in the experimentation phase is perhaps the norm, and it's kind of encouraged. So just to play devil's advocate, if they're a more conservative company, or they don't have a lot of disposable income, and they just sort of said, no one said this to me, but I get that sense sometimes that they're well, I'll just kind of sit this out and see what risks manifest, what sticks and what doesn't, and then I'll jump in a year or two when things are sorted out. So I'm just curious what you think about that as a strategy, and if not, what is the benefit of engaging people in the experimentation phase, and how do you do that in a sort of safe way, in a way, it doesn't sound like it's good to give ChatGPT free version to everybody and just go wild.
I'll just add on, right? Okay. So for any organization currently, I'll start with the problem. So if you're talking about an IT organization, we are already estimating about 85 million jobs which will go away in 2025 to 2026. So that's a good strategy for the CEOs and CXOs to see. Do you really need AI in the organization? If not, what will happen? Are you creating data scientists? Are you creating digital transformation specialists? So that safe guardrails that David is talking about, that might really help. But the second way is, if you're not an IT organization, you really do not want AI to be there, and you're talking about HR as an individual to be groomed in AI. I think we continue to groom ourselves in AI with some of the other options that is available, not just on the organization environment. So that will be the demarcation of which industry we are talking about, and understanding that industry to see, are we giving enough enablement tools to the developers? Otherwise, the code is going to be uploaded on some or the other areas, right? And even now you have options. You go to Stack Overflow. You go to any other sites where developers keep asking questions about why it is not happening. So we will end up seeing that, analyzing which fits the bill. If it doesn't really fit the bill based on the organization, I would say to take a step back, and as the organization strategy needs that, they will end up needing it if they are part of the 85 million jobs that's going to get over.
Nothing to add. Nailed it.
Also very much agree. And I think one interesting thought about it, I think also is, at some stage it is becoming a competitive necessity. And I think both at the individual and at the company level. So if others around you are using generative AI or other sort of AI technologies to significantly level up, it just becomes like such a competitive dynamic. And I think that's at the company level, but it's also at the individual level to some extent. I think we also as employers have a responsibility to upskill our talent on AI capabilities and AI skills, because I mean, this is really what's going to make them successful in their future and their future careers. And I mean, I think this is almost like we've overset that now, but you're not going to be replaced by an AI just yet. You're going to be replaced by someone who uses AI more effectively than you. So I think it's just a competitive dynamic, both at the individual, but also at the company level, ultimately. Sorry, I don't know who was first. Do you want to just go ahead and then we'll take that question next?
Sorry, man. Hey everyone, I'm Eka, founder at Ani. You talked about AI now replacing people and sort of someone who's using AI replacing you because of their efficiencies. You talked about testing out AI in sort of low stakes situations, but high sort of uptake. When you think about the HR space specifically, not necessarily the roles, but what are the sub-roles within HR, and potentially diving deeper, what are the functions or sub-functions within those sub-roles, as in employee engagement, total rewards, employee wellness? What functions within those are you most comfortable handing over to an AI, and have you had any actual specific success so far doing so?
Yeah. So on the talent side, there's a lot that is, and I think if you looked at like the most popular AI HR tools right now, probably half of them, there's an article by a guy named Dane Van Rossum, which literally lists its top 40 most popular AI HR tools. I think half of them are recruiting. And so this is not only AI sourcing, assessing, scheduling. So a company like called Modern Loop, which just schedules candidates. All of that used to be done primarily with human judgment in mind. And so now what I'll say is there's recruiting is not going away, the role of recruiting. But I was talking to one of my colleagues and who the other day said, I think I should change the name of my recruiter's title to talent advisor. And I'm like, interesting, why is that? And it's like, well, because I think there's more that they're doing around judgment and sort of shepherding candidates and providing the human touch versus the mining of these millions of profiles out there that a company like Seekout can do and just sort of and actually find and sort of like beat a human in terms of finding qualified leads. And that used to be a human that would do that. I'm going through LinkedIn, I'm like, I think these people are great, and like there's a role for that, humans obviously in recruiting, but I'm comfortable handing over the idea of using data science and a little bit more like predictive validity through technology and accessibility through tools, a huge data set to synthesize that a human usually can't do. So bring the machine in here, and then maybe even schedule, and maybe even have a sort of an AI assessment provided. And that will change the role of the recruiter to a little bit higher order function, actually. To
Like higher ROI.
Yeah, exactly. And make a candidate experience better, because that recruiter is now thinking a little bit less of like, oh gosh, I got to mine a million profiles today. I actually have to follow up with that one person who we said is really good, and I kind of want to keep them warm and like have some human conversations. And so back to your question, I'm really comfortable on the talent acquisition side right now. So.
And is that also because it's sort of not just people like they don't matter, but because it's a larger opportunity, right? As in if the AI messes up on trying to get someone, there's millions of people. Is that part of it too?
Well, I think it's publicly available data sets, and it's not internal Social Security numbers and sensitive conversations. It is. There could be clunkiness, obviously. We've all experienced a clunkiness of like, wait, you already reached out to me before. Why are you reaching out again? Is that as an AI bot doing this? So that clunkiness will happen with talent, but it's less about I'm fearful. It's less of my concern if something bad will go wrong, but just more of I think that's a really good use case. That's a lot of public available information. I think it's really hard for humans to do that in a way, particularly if you have like a really lean recruiting team. And I think that I think there will be a day that comes where we run a test, like a Schmidt and Hunter type of test, where it's like who can actually make a better hire, the machine in isolation versus just humans, and as measured by quality of hire or take your pick. And someone will do that test one day, and I think that there's always a role for humans and human judgment and making decisions. So I'm not saying that, but I think that there's something there around sorting through mass information. Also plug in like cognitive ability tests and work samples and all sorts of things that factor into the assessment for talent. I think it's less about, I'm not fearful that something will happen, and just more so that I think that's a really good use case to start with him.
Yeah, I think a lot of success on the talent acquisition space, but my thought process is going to be completely on the HR ops or the people ops specialist, right? So I'm very comfortable, I won't say that we have given it, but very comfortable in AI telling me your data is somewhere missed. There is an outlier in your data, you need to go back and figure out, fix it. And of course, we will have our human augmentation coming in, but that portion of helping us set that data estate, not fragmented, but having it completely in a way that we can use and scale AI to multiple process and the systems is where I would be looking at AI potentially. And of course, people ops is something which is the bread and butter for every function that we were talking about.
I'll say my close second is performance and engagement. and it's like that's coming. Obviously, Leapsome are thinking about this and are going to be leaders in this, but the idea of it's really hard for a manager to sort through a lot of information and like provide an assessment. How are you doing? It's also really hard if you're trying to think about the morale of your company and I'm just going to ask a survey every 6 months versus it's actually happening right now. You have Slack, there are conversations happening that like if we plug into this in a way that we don't think is Big Brother, we can actually have a real-time engagement readout on factors that are important, not just, you don't just have to wait 6 months to ask a 80-question survey. So performance and engagement is huge for us, also in terms of like helping the manager play more of the role we want them to do versus like synthesizing and trying to sort through complex information.
Yeah. I'm just going to take 10 seconds on this performance part of it, right? Because we've all struggled with our performance reviews. I remember my first couple of years, I keep saving all my performance comments so that I can keep pasting it year on year the next. And of course, so this AI is giving a capability for people to go and mine data on number of story points that I've completed or how many Jira tickets that I've solved. But at the same time, as my emails being extremely courteous, have I come across as a person who has been having escalations right in and right out from the client. I think that capability of performance management system to create a long form story of my short stint for the 6 months is something very, very impactful. I'm sure Leapsome and other organizations are already doing it, but that's something that I want to know, please.
And maybe just one final point to double click on, and I think it was already in your question, and I think this is the importance for now. You said like, what task is it gonna replace, right? Because we're right now, for the majority of jobs, we're speaking about replacing tasks, and thereby augmenting jobs, but not replacing entire jobs, which are like a whole bunch and cluster of tasks. And I think one really tangible example, I had a conversation about this early at the Forbes event, is with Leapsome engagement, for example. Historically, you could only look at the quantitative data and analyze, and then you had to go through all the comments, right? That might be 5,000 comments, and you had like HR business partners actually reading through all of them. And now, like instantaneously, the minute the survey is done, like you have a really high quality summary of that with like a sentiment analysis, with like suggestion on an action plan. Like that's a week or maybe even more of work that you actually save someone on a people team that can then be invested into a higher order task, right? Or as a manager, you start with like a good starting point to write your review, and that's just like enabling us to do maybe more of the stuff that really ultimately adds value. So yeah, thank you so much. We had a question over there.
Hey, my name's Ben. I saw an article a few months ago now that was like consumers, when they read that it has AI in it, are less likely to buy than when it doesn't say AI in the marketing. And as a recruiter in my past life, so to speak, I would tell you that I've never trusted a recruiting AI tool because it almost always doesn't work. And so I'm curious, like when we pivot, so it's for HR, of course, when we pivot into offering employees the ability to chat with an AI bot, even on these low sort of stakes matters, are you finding that people are happy with that experience, that they're still coming to HR for a live body? Are they missing the companionship? I think a lot of my job is not being their friend, but building that rapport, building the trust, building the idea that I'm around, right? And so I'm curious how you're seeing your company's AI taking that place, and how that's looking and how people are feeling about it.
So I'll just take a stab on this question. So I've been part of an organization which had about more than 500,000 employees at one point in time. So we had a chatbot that got released to the employees. So everyone can ask policy queries. So the employees would actually go and ask the queries to the chatbot and then come back and ask the HR, so that they will cross-verify, is that 1 + 1 is equal to 2, and the same 2 is answered here, or is equal to 2.5. So I think that's an human behavior that is never going to be solved. Even you have multiple chatbots, people are going to come back. But I think that's where our differentiation of HR, right, is an opportunity of being a very, very empathetic person to go back and say, you could have asked that question in the chatbot, yet I'm answering, or just to say, in giving that enablement to them, say, you have a technology available on your doorstep, but I do give your answer. This is never going to end. In my experience till now, people come back to us, even if system gives them answer.
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet. I mean, so take your consumer experience. So we've all been chatting with an AI chatbot, whether we know it or not. Your flight's delayed. You go to United and click here to chat with someone, and then it shows you're chatting with John, and it's like, is that really John, or who am I chatting with? And it's and it recognizes you, so it's like, hey, I see that your flight is delayed, and blah blah. What would you like me to do? I'm like, I want to get on the next available flight. Anyways, so if you think that you've had a really good experience there as a consumer right now, then maybe we're close on the internal side, which is, I think, is harder, because again, it's information that is more complex and not organized as much as United's flight directory. But I think a lot of us have just not had great experiences there on a consumer side yet. And so we're not there on the consumer side yet. I don't think we're there on the internal side yet. And it will be low stakes to start internally. It'll be like, hey, why was my paycheck lower this week? And then it's like, it's because of, whatever. And it can answer something really simple and objective. Versus, I don't really understand what's going on my team, big abstract, So I think in general right now, we're probably not there yet, even on the consumer side, in terms of being able to have an experience where I'm satisfied with this and I don't need to immediately get on the phone with someone else because this is crazy. But we'll get there. I think we'll get there, particularly on the internal side, relative to our ability to internally organize information and provide stuff that is more than just payroll and really objective stuff, but get into more abstract stuff, so that I feel I actually was more satisfied with this conversation than with my business partner. And that'll be a wow moment, when we finally get there.
But I think the couple of points where David made a right incent, right? So the anxiety, the very moment that I'm going to ask the chatbot, my anxiety level will be down. Okay, I did get an answer, but I'm going to go back to my HR VP at some point in time so that I clarify this. But I've seen a lot of researchers that have shown employees are very comfortable if it's an anonymous chatbot to go back and talk to it. And especially when it's on EAP, Employee Assistance Program, your mental health, right? They are extremely comfortable in talking to a chatbot because they feel it's non-judgmental, it's going to be third party, and I see data protection there, I sign up for this. There you see a substantial decline in this conversation between the HR and the employee. But I continue to see first level anxiety reduces, second level comes to us. So we again pacify them saying, hey, this is the right answer.
I think we're unfortunately running out of time. I know there's a lot more questions in the audience. Maybe we can actually take them to sort of when we're having drinks and pizza and canapes now and continue then, just to give everyone also the opportunity to eat and have some refreshments. There's 2 announcements I would like to make before we move into the fun part. The first one is we are doing an annual research report where we survey a large amount of people leaders as well as employees. The next one is coming out in just a few weeks on October 8th. If you want to get the report, just sign up on the QR code. It's going to be sent to you. I think we also have a webinar to guide you through the results if you're interested in that. And we have another webinar coming up at the end of September together with HR Brew on prioritizing people in a challenging economy. A lot of folks are faced with doing more with less. Our own Luck, our VP People, who's amazing, who's hiding in the back, is going to be speaking from her very, very vast experience. So I think that's one not to be missed. So you can also sign up for that here. And thank you all for coming, and thank you to you two amazing AI experts and operators flying in from Austin and joining us from the far Jersey. Really, really grateful to have had you, learned so much today, and yeah, let's continue the conversations over drinks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So now, once again, thank you. We are also standing, and we are all equal to say thank you. I'm so sorry for making you guys stand.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, great.
I mean, I feel